Angie Masden, and this is my persuasive speech for week 14 and 15. A Missouri woman is accused of repeatedly poisoning her son for about a year. A Texas woman who put her 2-year-old daughter into a heated oven was under the influence of pot, alcohol, and possibly also meth at the time. A 24-year-old woman is in custody after her 2 young children were found barefoot, dirty, and living in a shipping crate in an underground cave. These headlines are shocking and sickening, but are in the news every single day. The CDC website states these statistics for child abuse and neglect. According to Child Protective Service agencies, about 702,000 children were substantiated victims of child abuse or neglect in 2014. More than 1 in 10 children and youth experienced at least one form of child abuse or neglect in the past year. More than 1,500 children died in the United States in 2014 from abuse and neglect. The financial costs for victims and society are substantial. A CDC study showed that the total lifetime estimated financial costs associated with just 1 year of confirmed cases of child abuse or neglect is $124 billion. Abused children often suffer physical injuries, including cuts, bruises, burns, and broken bones. Physical injury is not the only negative impact of abuse and neglect. It can also affect broader health outcomes, mental health, social development, and high-risk behavior into adolescence and adulthood. Child abuse and neglect includes all type of abuse or neglect of a child under the age of 18 by a parent or a caregiver that results in harm or potential harm. There are 4 common types of abuse. Physical abuse is the use of physical force such as hitting, kicking, shaking, burning, or other shows of force against a child. Sexual abuse involves engaging a child in sexual acts. It includes behaviors such as fondling, penetration, and exposing a child to other sexual activities. Emotional abuse refers to behaviors that harm a child's self-worth or emotional well-being. Examples include name-calling, shaming, rejection, withholding love, and threatening. Neglect is a failure to meet a child's basic physical and emotional needs. These include housing, food, clothing, education, and access to medical care. Child abuse and neglect causes stress that can disrupt early brain development and serious chronic stress that can harm the development of the nervous and immune systems. As a result, children who are abused or neglected are at a higher risk for health problems as adults. These problems include alcoholism, depression, drug abuse, eating disorders, obesity, high-risk sexual behaviors, smoking, suicide, and certain chronic diseases. We, as a society, are obligated to protect our children against these types of abuse. There are laws that protect against child abuse and neglect. Child abuse laws often allow for both misdemeanor and felony punishments for anyone convicted of the crime. The difference between the two often depends on the type of abuse the child experiences. For example, an adult that sexually abuses a child is generally charged with a felony, while a couple who exposes their child to domestic violence might be charged with a misdemeanor. While state laws differ significantly, a conviction for child abuse typically brings with it one of several criminal penalties. According to criminaldefenselawyer.com, these penalties include the following. Fines. A conviction for child abuse can result in a substantial fine. State laws differ widely on the fines imposed on a child abuse conviction, but fines of several hundred to several thousands of dollars are common. Incarceration. Jail or prison sentences are very common with child abuse convictions. A misdemeanor conviction may bring a few days, months, or up to a year in jail, while felony convictions can easily result in sentences of 10 years or more in prison. Probation. Probation sentences are often included with child abuse sentences. A court, for example, may give a probation sentence to a couple who expose their children to domestic violence. Probation terms typically last at least 6 months, but can last a year or more. If a person violates the probation terms in that time, the court may then impose the original jail sentences, fines, or additional probation. Other penalties. When child abuse involves a parent, guardian, or someone with legal custody of a child, a court can also limit parental rights. Courts can impose restraining orders, place a child in protective custody with a state agency or foster family, require that the parent only visit the child with the supervision of a court-appointed monitor, order individual or family therapy, or even remove a parent's rights to care for that child. 67-year-old Wayne Sperling was sentenced to 5 years in prison for keeping his 4 sons in a tiny Denver apartment covered in layers of cat and human feces. Decomposing animals are found near the squalid mattress that the 4 boys shared. He pleaded guilty to 1 felony count of child abuse, naming all 4 boys. The original 6 felony charges were dropped. None of the boys, ages 2, 4, 5, and 6 at the time, could speak or recognize their names when they were removed from the apartment. They didn't know how to eat a sandwich or even recognize an apple as food. The 4 boys went through a total of 6 surgeries after they were rescued. 1 boy still struggles with respiratory illness and another suffers from a heart defect. This is just one example of how our justice system has ridiculously failed our children. We live in a society where the offender has more rights than the victims. Isn't it about time that we, as Americans, do something about it? No, it's past that time. We should be ashamed of ourselves to allow these types of criminals to get off with such lenient punishment. We need harsher, more severe punishment for offenders who commit crimes against children. America needs to push for longer sentences, longer jail sentences for misdemeanor convictions, and for felony crimes, the offenders should get life sentences or they should be sentenced to death. We need to protect our children because these children of ours, they need us. I urge you to contact our state and local agencies and demand for stricter punishment against these types of crimes. And I do have 2 sheets here. One has statistics on it for child abuse and sexual abuse. The other is another headline that was in the news about a child abuse victim. And I will pass these around. Thank you.